Okay, so what I've been looking at over the last, I don't know, week and a half, 2 weeks casually, has been spectral editing. I found a pretty good tutorial on LinkedIn, and it's a tutorial for Adobe Audition, which I thought was pretty pertinent to everyone, probably Bobby and Mark and maybe Mike, just working in the core, but anybody who has a CC license could make use of this information. So I'm using Isotope, but what you should know is that Isotope, for some reason, seems to be shared. The basic functionality is shared in Adobe Audition. And the primary feature we're interested in today is spectral editing. So if you were in Audition, you drop a file into a track, you would right-click on that. I believe there's actually an icon in the top left that shows a wave or this kind of ziggy-zaggy guy here. But the point is you can change this view. So I'll show you the initial problem. This is actually a recording I made when I was like, I don't know, 20 in a field, and I actually sold this, which is cringeworthy now.
He's gonna need me.
So this is a bluegrass band out at a festival. This is a live recording. As you can hear, the vocal take's not bad. The whole track came together pretty well, except for this portion here where we have feedback. It's not terrible, but to sell it's pretty bad. I was broke. I was a college kid. It worked, and I didn't charge very much. So what's kind of fun is like 15 years later, if we shift right now, you can't see where our problem is. I can hear it. I know it's over here. So it's over there somewhere. I can't see it. It looks quiet. And if I hack it out completely, it'll be suddenly dead silent. That's not going to work. So instead of looking at it like a wave, we're going to look at the spectral view. Okay, this is kind of like taking the wave and rotating it, flipping it on its head. We're just looking at the same thing from a different angle. So now I've got both of them there so you can see what's going on. Well, suddenly I see something right where I've heard problems. So we'll play it again.
He's gonna need me.
So you can actually see pretty clearly where the feedback is in this view. So you got, little striations of, this is the vocal, there's little guitar stuff, whatever. But when you see a solid line like this, it's usually mechanical noise because it continues all the way through. This one, it kind of fades out, right? But this it's a little laser beam of noise. And if I play right over it, it's very clear that's what it is. So this is the cool part. You can usually use, adaptive noise or whatever in Audition. But if you want to get really picky, you can actually just select it, which is ridiculously easy considering what you're going to get away with here. We're going to zoom in so we don't take too much of a chunk out, and I'm just going to turn down the sound here by like 40, 30 dB, something like that. So we hit render. And you can see it took a big old chunk out. You got to be careful. You don't want to get too crazy with it. You will hear a difference. But if I play it now,
He's gonna need me. I can feel.
I mean, it's gone, and you can't even tell. So usually you have some, I don't know, terrible processing noise when you do something like this, but because we were able to keep it kind of narrow, it's just flat out gone. And you're listening to a music recording, you're thinking, how is that pertinent to us here at the IMF? The reason is often we have to take recordings that were made in the field under less than ideal conditions and make them work. So I've got a buddy of mine is working for a nonprofit, and he recorded some kids saying some inspirational quotes, and this is part of his video, but he recorded them with a bad microphone in a noisy place, and it sounds like this. The other problem is the kids are quiet, so when you turn up the volume, you also increase all the background noise. Don't get too in the weeds here. The point is we're looking for really big, obvious problems.
To make changes, not excuses. To excel, not compete.
So, I don't know, the kid sounds good, but we've got this mechanical noise going on in the background.
To make changes, not excuses. To excel, not compete.
Sounds like a vacuum cleaner. What's cool is you can see it. I mean, it's right there. It's clear as day. You can see the words here vertically. I believe that's to make changes, not excuses. I mean, that's the kid. But this line right through the middle is a pretty consistent tone. So either someone's whistling perfectly or that's our Xerox machine. So similar approach. I was a little pickier, but I actually pulled it out. In the middle section here, I just turned it down. Rest of it's not touched. I did some noise reduction at the top here for something else, but the gist is here. So we'll play it before and after.
To make changes, not excuses. To make changes, not excuses.
It's a lot cleaner. So suddenly we've got the sound bite that doesn't sound great. It sounds like community college.
To make changes, not excuses. To make changes, not excuses.
And suddenly it's a pretty usable sound bite on its own. Now by the time you put a little bit of music over top of it, it sounds great. You can't tell that this guy used a $20 lav and a noisy shed, because that's the reality of most of our recordings, is they're just not in ideal situations. You can't tell. So this is in context with the rest of the video and the background track and all this.
To make changes, not excuses. To excel, not compete. I choose self-esteem.
So the point here is, it's not that you have to understand every nerdy dit or dash in the software. The point is, this thing allows you to cut out the stuff you want and leave the rest of it alone. You don't need to get super in the weeds with all the other tools. The Spectral tool by itself is extremely useful for removing any kind of mechanical noise. So that includes if someone goes out to a live event with a field recorder with comm and comes back to us and says, hey, we'd really like to use this in a video, or we'd really like to use this for the town hall, or I recorded this on my doorstep because we're under quarantine, or whatever. When you get stuff like this, if you hear washing machines, car horns, seagulls, seagulls would be nice, you can get rid of those tones. So that's what I've been looking at.